Okay, and we're live. Evening, everyone. Um, this is basically Deacon Joseph Sweden, and I am going to put up our first great and wonderful announcement, which, of course, is we've reached 1,000 subscribers. So this will be the last show. That may sound a little bit weird to say that. The reason why there was always going to be an end to this project. The truth of the matter is, when we started a few years ago, there wasn't much in terms of Orthodox apologetics, but there's a lot more now. But that said, this show is still going to have value in the sense that we covered a lot in those 3 years. So we're going to be modifying the library. I'm finally going to get around to indexing topics, other looking for other video providers. So we're going to make it worth it, and we're going to try to see that this continues to be useful to people, because we did a lot of work over the past 3 years, and I'm not letting it go yet. But one thing I will say is that I'm not going to be doing the same things over and over. And so I guess what I'm going to do is devote a little bit of time to explaining what I mean by that. When I'll try to answer things if anyone does have questions or comments, etc. But if I do say to refer to another episode, it means we already answered it on this show, possibly multiple times. Hopefully, once we're indexing all the shows and everything's in place properly, people won't have as many questions for that. And I will get to comments, and I will have my own things to say. Now, if it's political questions, I'll be a little loose on jurisdictional questions today, but honestly, I'm going to forward that to the end of the show, because when we're done, I've got a surprise. So that's going to be what we'll be talking about for a little bit. And so now, let's see, I'm going to go to the next banner. Finally, actually, why is that a ticker? Hold on, please. Okay. The purpose of the channel, have we covered everything? Despite, by the way, I do have notes. This is a first also. I've always said I was going to have notes. I actually do have notes. Despite the fact that, we've covered a lot of different things. We've covered Roman Catholicism ad nauseum. We've covered Protestantism in its different forms. We've covered the Jehovah's Witnesses, the Mormons, the Muslims. We haven't covered Buddhists, because I frankly think that maybe at this time of this generation is not as accepting of such a weird, chill religion. And so I will answer. I do see comments, and I will make comments in response. But I'm going to try to cover some stuff. No, I'm not renouncing the show. I'm not deleting the show. I do want to just get to that, because I am talking about the show. And so you're renouncing the show at all? Take back Constantinople? No, I'm not. What I am doing is I'm going to stop producing this show, which means we haven't done a show in months. And part of the reason why we haven't done a show in months, we'll get into that. Because there are multiple reasons for it. But the most important one is I was just repeating myself over and over, and there's not a value to that. That I guess if you want to run a live show where people have that sort of thing, that's fine, but that's not what we do here, and that's not what I wanted to do here. This was about defending the Orthodox faith, and I'm going to get into that shortly within the next couple of minutes. Far Eastern thinking is really pervasive. I'm sure we will cover it, but if I'm not going to get into how until I get into what our new plans are, because this has been, in a sense, I've wanted to focus strictly on apologetics, and what that means is strictly the defense of the Orthodox faith. So yes, that fits, but that's not the direction the show went for the past couple of years, for the past year or so, and that's something that I don't mind. It's just that I felt like we're not exactly being true to our full vision, because yes, sometimes we want to discuss jurisdictions. Yes, sometimes we want to discuss geopolitics. Yes, sometimes these things have a lot to do with orthodoxy. Do they have to do in the strict sense with the defense of the Orthodox faith? I would say no. And so I'm not being fair to people who are listening if they are just here to learn how to defend orthodoxy and we're talking about jurisdiction A versus jurisdiction B, and they're not really interested in that. They just want to know like how to defend like the Orthodox teaching on baptism, or like why is the papacy a lie, basic things like that. And so jurisdictional questions, I will be bringing them up towards the end of the show, and there's a reason for that. Okay, so let's see here. Also, I will say this. I don't, as I said, I wanted to defend the Orthodox faith. I didn't want to defend a particular brand. I didn't want to defend my guy. We have too many people, and I will give props to Orthodox apologists who do not do this, but we have too many people who tend to have this my guy mentality, and it's got to stop, especially when they change guys. Like, that's not how you're supposed to do things. You're supposed to be faithful to the faith, and then your bishop is secondary, and if he's not preaching the faith, that's a responsibility thing. And again, that falls away from the question of apologetics, because you're not talking about defending the faith, you're talking about finding a bishop. So, in a sense, even that stuff made me uncomfortable, because it's not what I was really wanting to do. The other thing was, ultimately, I started getting, how do I put this nicely? Bored. And what I mean by bored is that the part of apologetics is defending the faith and defending against heterodox. And if heterodox aren't talking to you, that makes it a lot harder. And there was kind of I'm going to say that there's like, first off, in apologetics, you have to be bold. You have to be bold enough to be willing to give answer. And you get that boldness from Christ and through the grace of the Holy Spirit. But more importantly, you have to try. You have to give effort. And that boldness is about doing things. And so what I noticed is that it became harder and harder as the politics continued with, all the various and sundry people in Apologetics Inc. Saying, "Oh, don't talk to this guy. Don't talk." And it's like, that's cowardly. It's backhanded. It's backroom. It's effeminacy. And I think that's unfair to women to some degree, because there are some brave women out there, and these men aren't that. And so, I take, like, for example, what happened to Ubi Petrus. I noticed he did a debate review of an excellent debate between Eric Ibarra and Father Patrick Ramsey of the Roque Hornby. And Father Patrick did fantastically. I will not even begrudge him that. I agree 100% with Ubi. But the first part of Ubi's thing was talking about how originally he was supposed to be the debater against Eric Ibarra, which is something most of us know. If we know Ubi Petrus, we know he's been wanting to debate Eric Ibarra for a fairly long time. And so this was a nice neutral venue. And this Pints with Aquinas Roman Catholic show, guy seemed like an honest host, so on and so forth. And within, a few weeks, where everything was supposed to be set up, they're like, "No, we can't do it with you." I've experienced that so many times that I don't even want to discuss it. But the simple reality is, if there are always, conniving little femmies behind, hiding in the background going, "Oh, don't talk to that guy," then there's no real purpose to it, because you're supposed to be defending the faith from heterodox. And if the heterodox are afraid to talk to you because these little gossips are afraid to talk to you, then what's the point of doing it? It just shows the boring, cowardly underside of the whole Orthodox video sphere. Outside of the people who are just like, "This is a saint," and so on and so forth. When you start getting into these personalities so many times, and I'll give credit to where credit is due, some great people I've learned from and gotten to know over time, folks like Craig Trulia, and people like even like Johnny KCJ, nice people that don't do that. Like, real apologists aren't backbiting little weaklings. And so that's part of the reason why this is a problem. Ruffling steak, just to answer that, I'm going to get to everything, but yeah, I do occasionally, but it's mostly online. So it's like, he doesn't like use my messaging system, but he has his own. He uses the Facebook one, and occasionally I go there to check on things, but I try not to. Okay, where are my notes? Hold on. The notes are really helpful. Okay, and finally it gets to the point that educational shows, like, we've done lots of educational shows, and with Bishop Enoch, he was great with educational shows. I think he's probably going to do more of his own thing. Hopefully we'll work together in the future on the next project. But for me, educational shows can get kind of boring. I like defending orthodoxy. I don't like being a lecturer or a teachy guy. I'm like, it's one thing to give a sermon or something. It's another thing to have a long show answering historical questions. And I'm not against that. I love those shows. I'm just not that guy. It's not who I am, and it's not what this show is supposed to be about. It's supposed to be about, you take from the history and the fathers of the church in relevance to argument against heterodox, to enlighten them and to bring them to the truth. And this is something that was kind of lost over time, and I think that that's something that made me realize once it got down to, okay, there's no one left to talk to because the little weaklings have talked everyone away from you, and then you can do educational shows, and I'm like, that's not what I wanted to do. I wanted to help defend the faith, and I want to help other people learn how to defend the faith and be bold, be confident, be trustful in the fathers. This was not, it turned into something that I'm not into, and it went into too many different ways, too many different differences. I will get to that. There's going to be a lot of discussions. I got some more to cover. Don't worry. I'm not just going to be like, okay, bye everyone. No. So the next thing I'm going to get to, we're going to I have like even my banner set up. I'm so proud of how well set up I am. Dogma versus opinion. One of the things that started me thinking about this over the past probably 2 or 3 days, I read what was an article by some writer who's actually not that bad on Ancient Insights. He usually cites the fathers very well. And I read the thing, and it got me very, very distressed. It was frustrating. It was depressing. And I'm going to tell you the reason it was depressing. It was an article about baptism, reception by baptism. Oh, that's an interesting question on its own. But the question of baptism, how are people supposed to be received into the church? And the truth of the matter is, if we're being completely honest, the church has used two to three different methods of reception based on the experience of the person who is coming into orthodoxy. And these have gone back hundreds of years, different ways, different people, different saints on either side, using either baptism of Roman Catholics, etc., or not. Now, this particular article was almost trying to dogmatically claim that the only way to receive people in is chrismation. And the reason that bothers me so much is because it besides being historically dishonest, more importantly, attempting to establish a right position on an opinion where the church actually has a lot of freedom on the matter, guarantees a position where one side of that debate, even one with saints on it, with hundreds of years of practice, has ultimately committed sacrilege. It's the height of ecclesiastical arrogance for a 21st century convert to then judge hundreds of years, including saints, using a practice that they don't prefer because they got it out of their modern technical manual of orthodoxy, which was made up by, Father Papadopoulos, I don't know who. Anyway, the point is that it's, somebody in the Greek Archdiocese, obviously. But the point is that what we don't see is we don't realize just how arrogant that is. And apologetics isn't that either. Apologetics is about defending the Orthodox faith. If Orthodox Christians used both methods, then neither of those methods is heterodox. And so it is wrong to attack it or make an opinion on it that is outside of a personal opinion. And you can't go into the dogma. It's not like the Trinity. It's not something that's not up for debate or discussion. And so that is part of the biggest part of what's wrong with this whole concept of, where we use the fathers to back up we're proof texting. It's very much like what Roman Catholics do instead of trying to understand the mindset behind it, because the church has historically actually synthesized those two views, but we don't bother because we're not interested in what the church has to say. We're interested in what we have to prove. That's not apologetics. But that is a dominant, becoming a kind of a theme these days, unfortunately, which gets me to the title of the show, and as well as what I am referring to in that sense, the papering. To just kind of explain what I mean by that, it's papering over stuff to make your guy look good. Again, the tendency of a team mentality among modern converts is really, really stupid. And I say that because the Orthodox world as a whole makes up a small fraction of the heterodox West, is largely surrounded by heretics. And what we really need to do is try to bring them to Orthodoxy as opposed to fight each other all day. I mean, there's a place for fighting each other, but it certainly isn't when you're busy trying to proclaim the faith to people. But this happens a lot, and I've seen this on all sides. I'm just to pick one example. If we know that the people at Fordham, the Fordham crew, the Eastern Studies crew, that they push for all the weird, amoral, immoral stuff, so on and so forth. But people will try to refer to them as an authority on the one hand, so that you're kind of like where like they don't say something controversial and disgusting, and they'll be like, okay, well, we'll just refer to that. That way, we can show that we still formally recognize them instead of calling out their constant immorality. And so this is a problem because we cover for our teams, and this is not the way we're supposed to be. We're not supposed to be like that. We're supposed to be covering for the faith. God will cover for, people's sins. But when it comes to like people proclaiming stuff that's, heretical or severely perverse and can scandalize the faithful, it's your job to do something. And some people really understand that well. On all sides, I mean, I have very great respect for people like Father Peter Heers and Father Josiah Trenum. They call it like it is. And if people acted more like them, I'd probably have a lot less to complain about. But in any case, that's not the case. So, I'll keep talking about the Wikis, who I deal with all the time. The semi-ortho nerds or whatever. There's problems and mixed blessings with trying to treat things in a sane manner. And what I mean by that is when you I've learned from last year, when I got into the whole hullabaloo about jurisdictions and grace and so on and so forth. One thing I learned is that, one, a lot more people dislike you. And that's okay, because a lot of people disliked me anyway over the years. I have enemies in the dozens. If I had dollars like I had enemies, I'd buy myself dinner tonight. I don't have that. I mean dollars. I have the enemies. But the point is that one thing that I did learn is that holding the same position attracts sane people to your thinking. And that allowed me to reach out to others, like Johnny KCJ, people who understand that it's not a perfect world, that the faith is the faith, but that the situation is weird and hard, and it's hard everywhere. And the truth of the matter is that's something that, leads to the current confused state of the Orthodox world, because everyone's trying to hold on to the team mentality, and it doesn't even work anymore. I remember 3 years ago when the Moscow-Constantinople schism occurred. Let's call it what it is. It's a schism. Then basically, there were so many of the papering types, and you know what I'm talking about, the my team types, so on and so forth. Oh, this is going to be over in a couple of months. Yeah, 3 years later, where are we now? They're still sifting through it. It's still a difficult time, and that's okay. That has happened historically. That continues to happen historically. And so the old calendarists are just like, yeah, well, we've dealt with that forever. That's no big deal. And it's true. It's true. And so, it's one thing to, again, recognizing one thing doesn't mean recognizing another. And what I mean by that is that papering is not the answer. Recognizing truth and recognizing falsehood are the answer. I have no problem with having a positive view of the Georgian Patriarchate. I do have a problem with having a positive view of the Greek Archdiocese. There is no contradiction here because they are two different people. Are they in formal communion? For now, I have a lot more respect for Moscow than I did 3 years ago. But in any case, the point I'm trying to make is that is something that is covered over by the papering. They cover over these little, these serious debates and discussions and fights over serious matters like the faith and like heresy. They paper it over. Oh, it's no big deal. Well, no, it is a big deal, and stop pretending it's not a big deal. Be a man about it. Even if you're a woman, there are histories of the church. There were many women who had a manly, persuasion, because they were willing to fight. And what I found is that we are dealing with very girly men, and so that is a big problem. Orthodoxy is not a fan of being weak. It's one thing to be weak for Christ's sake, but don't be weak in general. Okay, which leads me to pointing out, because I mentioned Georgia, the Georgia church versus state problem. It gets more confusing the more you think about it, because, for example, the Georgian media despises the Georgian church. The simple reality is the Georgian media is Western, is pro-U.S., is a puppet of United States policy. And so they look upon the church with disdain right when the church is becoming much more forcefully traditional. I'm not even going to try to deny it or argue it, or I'm not going to waste my time. The point I'm trying to make is that these interests, these constant interests of non-Orthodox actors like the U.S. State Department, and there's more I will bring up on that, but the point is these are things we have to consider when we are assessing problems in a church or a jurisdiction. How involved are the spooks, for lack of a better word? These are things that are not even thought about or considered. I recommend, it's funny, when I look at that article about baptism, there was discussion on orthodoxinfo.com about orthodoxinfo.com in the comments. And I got so sad because two people were like, sitting there going, oh, that's the site run by schismatics. Well, no, it's actually run by a Serbian patriarchate clergyman. But hey, you consider, whatever you want to call them. And then, it's just stupid. It's like there's like a censor list of books you're afraid to read because of the fact that they're not on your team. And that's just horrible. It's horrible thinking. You're getting no spiritual benefit whatsoever, and your orthodoxy is probably made out of memes. So it's no good. It bothers me. People, then we talk about schism and so on and so on. I love the word schism being thrown around. That's the benefit of youthful ignorance. For example, you will hear people talk about the example of the new martyrs while ignoring the fact that from 1981 to 2000, for 20 years, just about, until, the MP started reaching out to Rocor, they used to call the new martyrs schismatic. Think about that for a second. Then, of course, 2000 comes around, they decide, okay, we're going to fix most of this. They still didn't fix it with my saint, but that's okay, I'm patient. All of a sudden, they're not schismatic anymore. But that nobody thinks about that. They don't bother to think. People just like throwing out stupid words. And people who throw out stupid words shouldn't be paid attention to. But that's not the world we live in. So that's just something that I'm using on. But in any case, I guess that gets us to our next banner, which is the mess of now. And so we get to that. Once again, like discussion about things like the baptism thing. Donatism, I pointed out, it's making ecclesiastical statements based on evil behavior, like deciding whether someone has grace based on an evil behavior. But not being Donatist does not mean one does not call out evil behavior. If someone is pointing out evil things, then you are supposed to call them out. It is the right thing to call them out. And if you're not calling them out, it's that's something that I think absolutely needs to be taken care of. Let's see. I'm not going to, again, if it's a jurisdictional thing, I will deal with it at the end of the show. I do like this one. I actually do embrace both of them, but that's beside the point. We're going to get to that later on when we start talking about World Orthodox and True Orthodox saints and how that worked out, because it gets ridiculous. Okay. I mean, if you take a look, I want to get back to, again, state actors and things. We talk about the current situation of the Greek Archdiocese. I was reading just a couple of days ago, I was trying to read, and I started noticing there were articles about the head of the, I guess he was like the dean of the archdiocese, and they called him the head of the archdiocese in the New York Post. But his son was involved in in like Hunter Biden scandals with like $1.4 million with, you know, I forget what it was. It was like fake pot grower corporations and things like this. It was amazingly insane, the stuff, and this is all happening at the level of the U.S. government, and you hear nothing of it. It's like it's there on front pages of newspapers, and the only people who are covering it are like the old people at monomacos.com, which I firmly recommend, by the way. They really cover a lot of the dirt that's going on. But the point is that, you know, the news is ugly, and we don't pay that much attention to it, and we should. You know, I've dealt with these sort of things for a long time, and, you know, it's like sales pitches. People are like, yeah, but what about unity? Yeah, I heard the unity sales pitch 20 years ago. Like, oh, don't you want to be united with the whole church? Well, no, I mean, Rokor wasn't united with the whole church. Even now, the Greek Archdiocese, like the archons, are referring to Rokor as a bunch of schismatics. What's the concept here? Then the new sales pitch now is canonicity. Are you canonical? I don't think people know what canonical means who say you're not canonical, because if they did, they wouldn't say it, because they don't know what following the canons means. And if you don't know what following the canons means, you're not canonical. And so, you know, the truth is, and the forgotten and simple answer to all these things, no matter where you are, is to go and love the truth, not your guy, not your team. Look for the truth in everything, and look for the answers that people don't want to give you. And it's absolutely the solution to the mess of now. I hate to say, apologetics and honest, realistic readings of the present and history will solve the mess we're in. And so I'm going to get into the same things, I promise, but not right now. That leads us finally to something I talked about the last couple of episodes I touched upon, and that is the value of accusatory theology. Before the rise of YouTube apologetics, before the ecumenist era, before we had, you know, joint sessions with the popes and commemorations, and before there were old calendarists and new calendarists, we had something called accusatory theology in all of the Orthodox textbooks in all of the Orthodox countries. It was effectively what we refer to as apologetics today. It was used for general apologetical education in seminaries throughout the Orthodox world. That meant every regular priest who went to seminary was trained to defend his faith. How many of them are now? And I'm not, you don't look at everyone else's, look at your own. How many of them are now? And what has that produced? We were able to maintain far more unity of faith because we weren't able to be fooled by deception. And that's what accusatory theology was good for. And I like that term even more than apologetics. It meant to convey that the heterodox person you were speaking to needed to change to become orthodox. Whatever it's called, it has value in that it forces people, it focuses on how to bring people into the church while protecting those in it. And it's made for brave people, not cowardly people, not backtalkers, not mean girls, not weaklings. It is made for accusatory. It's made for finding the answers that the heterodox refuse to listen to and giving them to them. It takes strength. And I'm really going to get to the same things, guys, because I'm almost done with my notes here. So we're going to get to the next banner real quick. How the last year went. You were all here, I assume, so I probably don't have to go over that, but I will. Just on our channel, Church Politics ended up taking over the videos. Every week that we had a show, it became a jurisdictional discussion, and not one that I often enjoyed, because it was stuff that, honestly, a lot of the time I felt like people should just be like, read a history book. Like, don't like say things to us when you can look this up yourself. Also, church politics ties very deeply into church news. The simple reality is that those politics and issues with church news, they all tied together. So when one new thing happened, it was inevitably a political discussion. So I can't even blame people for that. But it certainly wasn't the point of the Apologetics channel. And then, of course, the one thing I have refused to talk about at any great length, the stupid manufactured virus, which is now leading to the stupid manufactured aliens. Because if you are glued to the screen listening to what they tell you, you will listen to what they tell you more than what makes sense. And I realize I'm not talking about anyone's positions on aliens. I'm not talking about anyone's positions on higher beings. I am talking about what the media is feeding you. And what they are feeding you are lies. And so that's something that, we used to cover stuff like this because once upon a time, I ran a news site. And that news site was called NFTU. And it still exists. If you go to nftu.net, it's there. And what I realized is that I like defending the faith. And I do enjoy talking about the news. And we do enjoy talking about, the geopolitics, the deeper stuff. That stuff that, myself, Bishop Enoch, other people have gone into depth with, but we haven't gone into depth on this show because of the fact that we know it's not the purpose of the Apologetics show. It is not the purpose of the Orthodox Apologetics. It's not the purpose of the Orthodox Apologetics channel. And that's why, from here on in, I will be moving away from except for maintenance of the site, I'll be moving away from that and moving back towards doing actual news, politics, apologetics, geopolitics, all the stuff that covers the whole Orthodox world that we can't cover here. We're too limited by it. This should be about just defending the faith, and the way to organize that is to put it in nice categorized stuff and getting it all together. But we wanted to actually start doing NFTU News. About 10 years ago, we actually did NFTU News for a very, very short period on an online radio station. So what's to say we can't do that now? And I think that would be the next best thing to do. I think that is the next way to go. We've started doing it. We started talking about it and talking about news stories where we catch the truth put against the hypocrisy of the modern world as we live in it. And so that's what we're going to be doing. We're going to be analyzing the news, the geopolitics, and its effect on orthodoxy globally, and true orthodoxy, and ecumenism, and how ecumenism is still alive, and how there's so much to talk about. But you know what I can't do it on? I can't do it on this show, everyone. So I won't, because I feel like that's betraying what this show's about. But that doesn't mean we can't start a new one. So when this is over, there will be a link to, join the NFTU News Roundup channel. And so I hope that everyone who's, listening, gets on there and joins. Just look for NFTU News Roundup. And, all right. So before I get to my closing, I am going to start covering some of these discussions that have been showing up. Okay. Do I think divergences about true Orthodox and world Orthodox will ever be resolved? I think it would be interesting. I think that, it's a lot more realistic than it was 25 years ago. However, I should add that it won't look the same. I don't know that there's going to be a Patriarchate of Constantinople in 20 years. The truth of the matter is, I don't, you could get like Elpidoporus to run it, but I don't, I think that their geopolitical plan is to move it to the U.S., where it's ultimately toothless and still trying to make orders all over the world, while everyone kind of more falls behind Russia. Now, I've seen some weird things happen. It's like, does world Orthodoxy reject true Orthodoxy? To answer that, yes, they do. They generally reject each other, and that's true. It was a mutual thing. It actually, in the case of the Greeks, I know that the new calendar started that first, and so, but this is where it gets weird, because doesn't world Orthodoxy accept true Orthodox saints? For the most part, no, but you'd be surprised at some of the exceptions. There's a case where the Matthewites, who are known as the most extreme wing of the true Orthodox, had a nun who was then glorified in Constantinople as a laywoman. And this was just a couple of years ago. You can find that on John Xenopoulos' site. Now, of course, he just says, well, that means she was really a laywoman. No, you're just lying now. She was actually a nun. We have pictures and we have her life and everyone knows it. But you just want to make that up because, oh, she's glorified and she's exuding myrrh and stuff. And now you're like, oh, well, that's ours. You see, that's the sort of thing you kind of see with stupid politics. And that's why I sometimes refer to glorifications like that as Barlam's ass doing the speaking, because sometimes, they just have to. But yeah, we got a lot of common saints. Then, World Orthodox would consider Chrysostom of Florence schismatic. Well, now, and some true Orthodox would consider, like Elder Paisios to be a heretic or something, or even a schismatic. I think some would view the Athenites as schismatic rather than heretical. But what I think is, more interesting is that these are opinions that have been had in centuries past. If everything was resolved and ecumenism was anathematized and the calendar returned, these things would just be individual opinions of saints in their own parties, defending their own parties. We've seen that in the Meletian schism. We've seen that during the Iconoclast period. We've seen that during other periods. So this could all just become part of history. And you'd never know because you're so busy going rah-rah team, which you shouldn't do. And so let's see here. Let me see here. Read the book The Struggle Against Ecumenism, published by HTM. It goes over the reconciliation of St. Chrysostom and St. Matthew. That's generally a very good book. A little bit, a little bit heavy-handed on the defense of Hockna there, which they don't really deserve. And most of the people mentioned in that book who formed Hockna are now part of the GOC under Callinicos of Athens. So yeah, it's a good book. I'm not against it. I liked it. It was my introduction, one of my introductory books. It actually came out a year after I converted to Orthodoxy, so it was very helpful. Now, technically, St. Joseph of Petrograd is an MP saint. While he's not in the calendar of the EMP, we call him a saint recognized in one sense by the MP because he is a saint via Rokor, and Rokor being in communion with the MP. I've also heard that Moscow Patriarchate priests are developing a cultus of St. Joseph. It is happening. So it's not like everyone is just in agreement he shouldn't be there. What I do say is that people need to regain that historical consciousness of the Catacomb Church, because with all of its, difficulties and wrinkles, it was the greatest outpouring of holiness caused by the most violent and evil attack on Christianity in history. And we need to learn from that. And if we don't learn from that, we're doomed to repeat it. So that's definitely, something to consider. And then, so let me see here. Is your bishop fine with your Cyprianite views? Well, Cyprianite views are much more precise. Like they talk about alien and, alien healthy churches. I don't really do that. I like the uncondemned heretics language. But the point is, if you're asking if my bishop's fine with it, yeah, he is. Saint Myrtha was a Matthewite. She was, no, I thought she, yeah, but I'm pretty sure she, I'd have to I'd have to recheck that because I feel like, no, I don't know. Maybe you're right. But in any case, speaking of Matthewite nuns, do you happen to know anything about Mariam Sokutis and her alleged crimes? I've seen her being held against all true Orthodox. No, I know nothing about that. What did the email you got sent on accident by the Metropolitan of the Antiochian Archdiocese when you were a layman say? I don't remember getting an email sent on accident by a Metropolitan of the Antiochian Archdiocese. I do remember getting an email from a patriarchal secretary, and that wasn't by accident. It was because I wrote him as a layman because there was a website that had his email address up. So I just thought I'd relay some messages to the patriarch, and then I gave it to the rest of the parish to send messages to. And so I think they appreciated them. In any case, so yeah, but that was just, that was before a big synod meeting, and it was actually right before they established all the new dioceses, because the Antiochian Archdiocese used to just be one self-ruled one archdiocese that was ruled by Metropolitan Philip, and it wasn't until after that synod meeting that they divided into actual dioceses. So anyway, so again, it has been great doing this. It's been an honor. And the truth is, I've learned a lot. I was, grateful for Bishop Enoch for being a co-host a lot of that time, and I think he will. I hope so, because we've actually talked about this. About a year ago, we were discussing the possibility of just redoing NFTU news again, and I think it's time. Um, and so what's it called? That's I think it's time to start doing that. But anyway, let me see here. Was there anything else? Yeah, actually, there's an article where John said, yes, he does recognize that, but he also says that the Patriarchate does not recognize that that happened, which makes no sense. And let's just be honest, regardless of his opinion, regardless of the Patriarchate's opinion, that makes no sense. Common sense says if someone was made a nun and then they're exuding myrrh as a saint, that to say she was just a layperson makes no sense. It just doesn't. And so let me see. St. Mercedisa was a spiritual father of Father Cyprian of Philly before he became schismatic from the GOC. I really do not want to talk about the Callisto schism. Where can someone message you, Deacon Joseph? Great question. I guess if you need to reach out to me, first off, you can always reach out to me through my website, guardingtime.com. Just comment there. You can also reach out through NFTU at nftu.net. So let me just put that down. That's my personal website. And then NFTU's website, where we will be hosting episodes of NFTU News, can be found at nftu.net, as well as on the NFTU News Roundup channel, which I will be putting on the links at the end of this discussion. And then, direct message, I really try hard not to use Messenger. I am available on Matrix if you look for my name, Father Deacon Joseph Sweden. And if you don't know what Matrix is and that's really too hard for you, don't do it. But if you're like a Matrix fan and you've been using it, you really just have to look up my name. I'm not that hard to find. Anyway, but the easiest way to do it is to go to NFTU and reach out to me there, or guardingtime.com. I check both those websites pretty constantly, and I respond pretty quickly. Any news on Bishop Enoch's health? I wasn't aware he was sick. I mean, he wrote me an email like 2-3 days ago. I guess I could call and check, but I'm pretty sure he's okay. Unless I don't follow Facebook, so I don't know. Maybe he got sick or something. I'm sure, God willing, he'll be fine. He's young, and I'll go check on him. And granted, the show will be over. So the best thing I can suggest is, if you want to reach out to Bishop Enoch, is probably to reach out to him on Facebook. Let me see. You can also contact the Abbey of the Holy Name by going to his synod's website and looking up the number there. I'm not giving out his personal email. I think that's tacky. Okay. Nalarparaz, let me restate my position concerning Cyprianism. Is your bishop fine with you promoting the view that World Orthodox have sacramental grace? To be technical, I said that World Orthodox have the possibility of sacramental grace. I do not know. I don't know individual situations. If you're asking, do I know for a fact that World Orthodoxy in every single church and every parish throughout the world has no grace, then yeah, I don't hold that position. And no, my bishop knows that. And 3, my bishop thinks that position is kind of wacky. So anyway, let me see here. He posted that he's dealing with some serious health problem which could lead to early death. Well, that's bad. I guess I'll go check on him. I will do that. And I'm sorry to hear that. And actually, you and the administrator of that group, Radu Blabea, should talk. He's one of the guys who doesn't care about jurisdiction wars and tries to salvage everyone who upholds an Orthodox worldview. I think there's a lot of people like that, especially in the apologetics community when they're serious apologists, because they know that the truth of Orthodoxy supersedes partisan bickering. That's good. I don't know who the group is. Which group are we talking about? But as soon as I do, maybe I'll reach out to him. But again, we'll see. In the future, I'm sure stuff will come up. And remember, I'm still going to be maintaining this and adding, library like notations as to what we discussed in each show as I do them. So I'll still be reading comments if anyone needs to reach out to me here. You don't actually have to have my secret email or anything. Just write a comment and I'll see it in my YouTube channel. So other than that, that's I think that's about everything. Again, as always, I'm grateful for everyone here listening, grateful for everyone making comments, questions, concerns. I'd like to say we'll cover it on the next show, but that won't be happening. But we've got something new coming up, so, look up NFTU Roundup, look up NFTU.net, and, hopefully we'll be back on, we'll see you all soon. But, other than that, thank you, and have a great evening, and don't ever forget to defend the Orthodox faith. To close up my thoughts, becoming Orthodox means that you're ensuring through the fathers of the church that you hold the right faith, the one true faith. Division over the preservation of that faith isn't a bug; it's a feature. It just feels like a bug. And with that, I bid you all good night and farewell.